Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Hidden Human Story Radio with your host, Rita Jean Moran. Today is Friday, July 12, 2013, and I'm your host, Rita Jean Moran. Welcome back. At the end of the last show, I talked about a Roman scholar named Valerius Maximus. I read from part of his writing, Memorable Sayings and Doings, 1,000 Tales from Ancient Rome, and I revealed, or his writings revealed, the identity of the Abrahamic god as Jupiter Sabazius, which is just another name for Zeus. We talked about the murder and cannibalism of Zeus's son Zagreus and how Zeus captured his soul to have it born again in Dionysus Osiris. We also talked about the global travels of Osiris to teach knowledge and civilize the world. He was accompanied by an army, his brothers and sons, and probably by his father Zeus when he visited the Americas. I will prove this through the stories of Viracocha. I gave a brief summary of the mythological unification theory last week and how all the pantheons around the world are speaking about or telling about the same people, but just giving them different names. Today, I'm going to discuss the Olympians from ancient Greece, Greek mythology, Ariadne, who is another name for Isis, the wife of Dionysus Osiris, and a little bit more on the mythological unification theory, and ancient technology and modern-day technology, and how directed energy technology is probably being used to create some of the complex crop circles that we are seeing lately. I will be reading from some of the ancient writings and some current news articles, and I claim Title 17, Section 107, for usage, to present some of this information. Now, the Olympians were ancient Greek gods and goddesses that were related to Zeus, and they sat or resided on Mount Olympus and decided the fate of humans and gods. The Olympians included Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Athena, Hestia, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, and Hermes. Hestia was often replaced by Dionysus. Now, according to Wikipedia, Hades and Persephone were sometimes included as part of the 12 Olympians, primarily due to the influence of the Lucian mysteries, although in general, Hades was excluded because he resided permanently in the underworld and never visited Mount Olympus. Other gods like Heracles and Asclepius could also be included. Now, the concept of the 12 gods, according to Wikipedia, is older than any extant Greek or Roman sources and is likely of Anatolian origin. The gods meet in council in the Homeric epics, that's referring to the ancient Greek writer Homer, but the first ancient reference to religious ceremonies for the Olympians collectively is found in the Homeric hymn to Hermes. The Greek cult of the 12 Olympians can be traced to 6th century BC Athens and probably has no precedent in the Mycenaean period. The altar to the 12 Olympians at Athens is usually dated to the archonship of the younger Pisistratus in 522 or 521 BC. Now that's an interesting word, archonship. We've heard that word archon mentioned quite a bit in Gnostic writings, so you keep that in the back of your mind. As we get into later shows, I'll get into some of the writings of the Nag Hammadi library. Now, the Roman equivalent of the Greek gods basically just used the same set of Greek gods but changed their names and often equated many of them with planets in our solar system or something else. Zeus is the Roman Jupiter, Hera is the Roman Juno, Hades is Pluto, Poseidon is Neptune, Demeter is Ceres. Now Ceres is named after some large asteroid in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, so that's interesting. Hestia is Vesta, Aphrodite is Venus, Ares is Mars, Mars, the red planet, the planet of war, and Ares was the god of war. So a lot of this has a lot of meaning. Hephaestus is Vulcan, and Vulcan is an alleged planet that can't be seen from the Earth but is in our solar system. Hermes is Mercury, Apollo is the sun, or sometimes Apollo may be referred to as Phoebus. Artemis is Diana, or the moon. Athena is Minerva. Dionysus is Bacchus, and sometimes also referred to as Sabazius, which is similar to Jupiter Sabazius. Remember I said Jupiter Sabazius is Zeus and was referred to as the Jewish or Abrahamic god, and Dionysus, the son of Zeus or son of God, is often referred to as either Bacchus or Sabazius in Roman mythology. Heracles is Hercules, and Persephone is Proserpina. And many of the other lesser-known god and goddesses have also been honored and worshipped in Roman mythology and given different names as well. But the stories are pretty much the same. Now, the Olympians gained their power after a great war between Zeus and the Titans. And the Titans were the children of Gaia and Uranus, and basically they were brothers of Kronos. Kronos was really one of the Titans, and Zeus was the son of Kronos and Rhea. Now, after this great war, Zeus reigned supreme and passed down rulership to his bloodline only. Those that opposed his law were destroyed. There are many Greek scholars that speak about the Olympians, including Homer, Hesiod, and Pindar, according to Wikipedia. Hesiod was a Greek oral poet, generally thought by scholars who have been active between 750 and 650 BC, around the same time as Homer. The works of Hesiod are very important. His work, called Theogony and Work of Days, includes the story of a great war between Zeus and the Titans that went on for 10 years. And this war destroyed the planet as well. The Theogony concerns the origins of the world, or cosmogony, and the gods, theogony, beginning with Chaos, Gaia, and Eros, and shows special interest in the genealogy of this god and goddess bloodline. Now, according to Wikipedia, The Works and Days is a poem of over 800 verses which revolves around two general truths. Labor is the universal lot of man, but he who is willing to work will get by. This work lays out 5 ages of man. It's interesting because there's 5 ages of man in Mayan cosmology as well as containing advice and wisdom, prescribing a life of honest labor and attacking idleness and unjust judges, like those who decided in favor of Perseus, as well as practice of usury. It describes immortals who roam the earth, watching over justice and injustice. The poem regards labor as the source of all good, in that both gods and men hate the idle, who resemble drones in a hive. Okay, now a hive as in a beehive. Very interesting. We do see a lot of beehive symbology in Hollywood, the music industry, advertisements, and of course the Freemasons. So definitely the whole idea behind a beehive, and it's what it represents, is very ancient and goes back to this bloodline. Now, here is what Hesiod wrote about the great war between Zeus and Titans. And I'm going to read this. For a long time they fought in bitter toil against one another in strong battles, the Titan gods and those born of Kronos. And I'm going to stop for a minute. There are two different Cronoses. One is generally spelled with a K, the other with a C. One is, the K is a god of time, and this Kronos was the son of Gaia and Uranus and the father of Zeus, and I'll get into his story in some subsequent shows. So let's continue reading. The Titan gods and those born of Kronos, the proud Titans from lofty Orthus, and from Olympus the gods, givers of good, whom fair-haired Rhea bore, having lain with Cronus. With bitter war against one another, they fought continually for 10 full years. There was no end or relief from harsh strife, for either the war's outcome was eventually balanced. But when he gave them everything fitting, nectar and ambrosia, which the gods eat themselves, and the proud spirit grew in the breast of all, then the Father of gods and men said to them, Hear me, good children of earth and sky, that I may say what the spirit in my chest commands. For a long time now, against one another, we have fought every day for victory and power. The Titan gods and we born of Kronos, show your great forces and unbeatable arms against the Titans in savage war. Remember our friendship and how much you suffered before you came to the light from grievous bondage under the murky gloom, thanks to our counsels. Now Hesiod continues with this poem and tells that the war would not end, and that the male and female Titans were so angry they still wanted to fight. 100 arms shot from the shoulders of each and all. 50 heads grew from the shoulders of each. From their massive bodies they stood against the Titans in grim battle, holding great rocks in their massive hands. The Titans opposite brought force to their ranks. Expectantly, both displayed the deeds of arms. The strength together and the vast sea echoed loudly, shook and groaned, and great Olympus was shaken from its foundation by the immortals' charge. A heavy tremor of feet reached dim Tartarus, and the loud noise of unspeakable rout and strong weapons. Shouts from both sides reached starry sky as they came together with a great outcry. Zeus no longer restrained his might, but now his heart was filled with wrath, and he revealed all. His force from the sky and Olympus both, he came throwing a lightning flurry. The bolts flew thick with thunder and lightning. From his massive hand, whirling a holy flame, one after another, the life-giving earth resounded. In flames the vast woods crackled loudly about. All the land and ocean streams and the barren sea were boiling. The hot blast enveloped the land-born Titans. The flame reached the upper brightness in its fury. Although they were strong, the blazing glow of thunder and lightning blinded their eyes. The awful heat seized chasm, it seemed, for eyes to see and ears to hear the sound, just as if earth and wide sky from above came together, for so great a noise would arise from the one fallen upon and the other falling down. Such a noise arose from the strife of clashing gods. The wind stirred up earthquake and dust and thunder and lightning and blazing lightning bolts, the weapons of great Zeus, and brought the shout and cry into the midst of both sides. A great din arose from fearful strife, and strength's work was revealed. Okay, so this was part of the poem that Hesiod wrote. And it continues on with Zeus and the Olympians being victorious. Again, Theogony works in days. Just reading that brief amount of the poem, so many things stick out. The 5 ages of man, Zeus and his mighty weapons, the thunderbolts, burning up the waters, burning up the land, a 10-year war, heavy rocks that they would fire from their hands and shoulders. What kind of a weapon would burn the water and the earth in such a manner? Now, this sounds like either a nuclear bomb or a laser weapon. And the attack from Zeus came from the sky as well. So, in my opinion, this poem describes a highly advanced warfare that lasted 10 years and was fought from the air. And per my research, I am thinking about 16,000 to 17,000 years ago. And I will eventually get into how I came up with those numbers by looking at the works of Manetho and Diodorus Siculus and Nonus and the Turin Papyrus and a couple other kings lists. So there are numerous stories about a great war in our past. There are stories in Hindu literature. There's stories basically in Nordic mythology, Ragnarok, and there are other stories of massive destructions and creation of the new man after a different race of giants was wiped out. And this is a global theme. I definitely think that this is something that went on in the past, and I definitely think it was a very advanced war that pretty much destroyed whatever was left of an advanced society and restarted everything. And I definitely believe there was a race of giant humanoid that appeared to be Caucasoid in nature, often described as red-haired, blonde, auburn-haired, and that race was generally wiped out through this war and interbreeding with a newly created human. So, for now, as I continue with my shows, I want us to concentrate on a lot of the Greek literature to begin with, because it's just incredibly abundant, and it's very descriptive, and it's a very good starting point to get a good idea of a time period and all of the characters that were involved and what was going on in the past. And then I will go and look at various pantheons and stories from all parts of the globe after I've laid a good foundation from the Greek mythology. And I'm going to show how they are basically telling you the same story with just different names, and how this has pretty much been covered up. So I want to talk I want to also mention that the thunderbolt weapon that Zeus had is a constant theme with him. It seemed to have a variation in power where it could destroy parts of the planet or just simply be used to basically burn up a person. And it sounds more to me, based on some of my research, like a directed energy weapon, and perhaps the war that they fought used this in combination with some kind of a nuclear bomb. Later in the show, I'm going to discuss the current state of directed energy weaponry and possibly how could it be used currently to create crop circles, and how it's being used to burn people and cause them pain right now. But before that, let's talk a little bit more about the mythology and who these ancient people were, and we'll start with the wife of Dionysus Osiris, who is also known as Ariadne. Now, we know from Egyptian mythology that Isis was the wife of Osiris. But as I said, who was she in Greek literature? The works of Diodorus Siculus and Nonus tell us. And I read quite a bit of it last week, but we have a little bit more that we can read to show you this. Now, she was Ariadne, the daughter of King Minos, and his wife, the queen Pasiphae, who was the daughter of Helios, the sun titan. She is famous, Ariadne is, for her part in the story of the Minotaur from Crete. So she came from Crete. Okay, Ariadne is mostly associated with mazes and labyrinths, according to Wikipedia, due to her involvement in the myths of the Minotaur and Theseus. Her father put her in charge of the labyrinth where sacrifices were made as part of reparations, either to Poseidon or to Athena, depending on the version of the myth. However, she would later help Theseus in overcoming the Minotaur and saving the would-be sacrificial victims. In other stories, she became the bride of the god Dionysus, with the question of her background as being either a mortal or a goddess, varying in those accounts. Since ancient Greek myths were passed down through oral tradition, many variations of this and other myths exist. According to the Athenian version of the legend, Minos attacked Athens after his son was killed there. The Athenians asked for terms and were required to sacrifice 7 young men and 7 maidens every 7 or 9 years to the Minotaur. One year, the sacrificial party included Theseus, the son of King Agis. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, Agis, who volunteered to come and kill the Minotaur. Ariadne fell in love at first sight and helped him by giving him a sword and a ball of thread so that he could find his way out of the Minotaur's labyrinth. She eloped with Theseus after he achieved his goal, but according to Homer, he had no joy of her, for ere that Artemis slew her in Sigurd Dia because of the witness of Dionysus. Homer does not expand on the nature of Dionysus's accusation, but the Oxford Classical Dictionary speculates that she was already married to Dionysus when Theseus ran away with her. In Hesiod and most other accounts, Theseus abandoned Ariadne, sleeping on Naxos, and Dionysus rediscovered and wedded her. In a few versions of the myth, Dionysus appeared to Theseus as they sailed away from Crete, saying that he had chosen Ariadne as his wife and demanded that Theseus leave her on Naxos for him. This is the effect of absolving the Athenian culture hero of desertion. The vase painters of Athens often showed Athena leading Theseus from the sleeping Ariadne to his ship. With Dionysus, she was the mother of Oenopion, the personification of wine, Staphylos, related to grapes, Thoas, Peparethus, Faunus, Eurymedon, Aeneas, Ceramus, Maron, Euthymus, Latrimus, and Tauropolis. Her wedding diadem was set in the heavens as the constellation Corona. She remained faithful to Dionysus, but was later killed by Perseus at Argos. In other myths, Ariadne hanged herself from a tree like Aragon and the Hanging Artemis, a Mesopotamian theme. Some scholars have posited, due to her thread spinning and winding associations, that she was a weaving goddess like Arachne, supporting this assertion with the mytheme of the hanged nymph. See, weaving in mythology. Dionysus descended into Hades and brought her and his mother Semele back. Then they joined the gods in Olympus. Okay. Now, I don't think that she was killed. I think that she married Dionysus after she was abandoned by Theseus. And what's interesting is the Vatican has a statue of a sleeping Ariadne inside the Vatican Museum. In the writings of Nonos, the other Greek scholar that I mentioned last week, they have Theseus abandoning Ariadne and Dionysus Osiris finding her, crying after her abandonment. He marries her and loves her dearly, and she becomes his queen and mother of his children. There is one tale of Dionysus having an affair with another maiden after he was married to Ariadne during his travels of civilizing the world, but even though she was distraught over it, Ariadne forgives him. Ariadne is the Cretan goddess holding snakes in her hand while being bare-breasted. Ariadne is Isis, and I believe she probably did have more than one child with him, although the Egyptian legend speaks of only Horus. But I believe they were together quite a while before Osiris was either killed or faked his death, and probably he was killed. Here is some of the story of Ariadne and Dionysus from the Dionysica, written by Nonos. Dionysus, why do you still bear a grudge against the cestus that makes marriage? Beroe was no proper bride for Bacchus. Beroe was a maiden that he was in love with, but she wasn't given to him in marriage. But this marriage of the sea was quite fitting, because I joined the daughter of Aphrodite of the sea to a husband whose path is the sea. I have kept a daintier one for your bride chamber, Ariadne of the family of Minos and your kin. Leave Amiamon to the sea, a nobody, one of the family of the sea herself. You must leave the mountains of Lebanon and the waters of Adonis and go to Phrygia, the land of lovely girls. There awaits you a bride without salt water, or of Titan stock. Thrace, the friend of brides, will receive you with a wreath of victory ready, and a bride's bower. Thither, Pylene, also the Shakespeare, summons you, beside whose chamber I will crown you with a wedding wreath for your prowess, when you have own Aphrodite's delectable wrestling match. So Wild Arrow spoke to his love-mad brother Bacchus. Then he flapped his whizzing fiery wings, and the shambird flew in the skies, traveling until he came to the house of Zeus. And from the Assyrian Gulf, Dionysus went daintily clad into the Lydian land along the plain of Pactylos, where the dark water is reddened by the gold-gleaming mud of wealthy Line. He entered Minonia and stood before Rhea, his mother, well, actually it would be his grandmother, offering royal gifts from the Indian Sea. Then leaving the stream of the river of deep riches and the Phrygian plain and the nation of soft living men, he planted his vine on the northerly plain and passed from the towns of Asia to the cities of Europe. Okay. And that was from the Dionysica, written by Nonos. Now, King Minos of Crete was also a son of Zeus. And his mother was Europa. He was the king of Crete. Ariadne was his daughter, as I said before. So you see some of the inbreeding going on in this bloodline, and that they kept it that way. Aura was a maiden that Dionysus had fallen in love with, but she didn't want him. Amymone was the daughter of Aphrodite, and she was eventually married off to Poseidon, per some of these ancient writings. Okay. So we're getting a little bit of an idea. I just want to talk a little bit more about Dionysus. Last week I explained that he was the reincarnation of Zagreus and was supposed to be the heir of Zeus's throne, and he was sent out by his father to civilize the world because they were cannibals and savages and they had no laws, and definitely there were some different races of humans. The Titans were of giant stature, and versus the regular humans, and definitely Osiris Dionysus was out teaching all of the humans and whatever was left of this giant race, different rituals and mysteries and information about agriculture and medicine. And he didn't go alone. He went with the whole team. And, as I had mentioned last week, he had to dress as a girl, and he was raised by his grandmother, Rhea, to try and avoid the notice of Hera. Now, there are some people that would say that he was homosexual, but I have not found any evidence of that. In fact, if anything, I would say he definitely had a passion for the women that he was smitten for or with. And he, as you go in and read some of these ancient writings, it talks about he would fall in love with certain women and really wanted to set up a home with them, and if they rejected him, it was devastating, but he did fall in love with Ariadne Isis and loved her dearly. So I would definitely not say that, even though he may have dressed as a woman, that there was any kind of indication of him being homosexual. If anything, I would say the opposite. So continuing on with that, he did create a bloodline, and that is the pharaonic bloodline. And that bloodline mixed with the other sons and daughters of Zeus, Hermes and Heracles and whomever else. As I go through these texts, I'll point it out. And Ares, being the son of Hera and Zeus, he had a certain set of bloodlines as well that created Rome. And as I'm going into further literature, Ares was the father of the Amazons. Those were his daughters. So there's definitely, certain bloodlines that were inbreeding, keeping it within the family, keeping a certain bloodline together. And there were certainly some fights between these bloodlines. However, there was also the bloodlines of the Titans, who were the enemies of Zeus. And these were the giants. And we don't have a lot of information about what happened to them, other than they were pretty much hunted down and exterminated, or some of them interbred with the humans. Particularly in Ireland, there's a lot of legends about the giants, and some were good, some were bad. And definitely in the Americas, there's all kind of talk about the red-haired giants. Like the Paiutes talk about the Sayaka, and various other tribes talk about it as well. So, whatever was left after this great war, there was certainly a lot of animosity, and there was a certain amount of keeping the bloodline inbred versus the enemies of Zeus, and exterminating those bloodlines. All right, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back and talk about crop circles and technology. Okay, welcome back to Hidden Human Story Radio with your host, Rita Jean Moran. All right, let's move on and talk about crop circles and technology. Okay, at one point I remember watching a TV show about crop circles, and the bent crops were examined, and they had talked about the water inside the stalk was gone, and the bent plant looked as if it had been microwaved. Now, with the advances in today's technology, specifically directed energy weaponry, an advanced crop circle could probably be easily made with one of these high-energy weapons and a computer. There is now a high-energy weapon that is used on protesters and prisoners to heat up their internal fluids and cause them pain, and it is being used in America and has already been used. But what I found interesting are a couple articles that one of the devices was named Zeus and is being used by the military. So I'm going to read from this article by, it's called The Power of Zeus in the Hands of the U.S. Military. It was written by Hubert Nigan on June 28, 2012. And it's an interesting article. Okay, let's read this article. Picatinny Arsenal, an armament company specialized in both conventional and smart weapons, is working on something that goes beyond kinetic energy weapons, which is a fancy term to describe throwing stuff at the adversary. In their own words, they seek to harness the power of lightning. Quite ambitious, if you ask me. Okay. The end game, they say, is to be able to target anything that conducts electricity, to create lightning out of thin air. The company uses a very intense laser beam. Unlike normal weaponized lasers, the beam itself is not the weapon here. Instead, the beam is so powerful and so focused that it can rip electrons off of air molecules, says Picatinny. The mean that serves as a guiding mechanism for the energy to the target. Of course, that's the theory, and while it looks great on paper, the real-world progress has been slow but steady. As this is often the case for this type of research, it takes nearly 20 years to design and field a new fighter plane. So imagine doing this with something that has never been done before. As always, the problem lies into creating and managing the energy required and sent by this device. The energy input-output can be huge, what a city uses, says Picatinny, and this is particularly difficult to build and maintain parts that will channel such power. If this works, the lightning bolt can be directed towards a target and would self-guide itself in the last few yards or inches, provided that the target is a conductor. A normal laser beam cannot do that. Although the Army does not describe in details what it intends to do with it, most energy weapons are designed to intercept high-speed, high-value targets such as ballistic missiles or even projectiles like artillery shells. At this speed, some final auto guidance to the target at the speed of light can mean the difference between a miss or a loss. And this is no small game if the incoming projectile is a nuclear warhead. Okay, now I'm going to read from a second article. It is titled, The Zeus Laser is All Pew 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 Before Landmines Go Splosion, written by Andrew Tarantola on October 20th, 2011. You know, I have one simple request, and this is to have Humvees with frickin' laser beams attached to their roofs. The U.S. Army is already developing them. Oh, well, that's a start. The HLONS, or HMMWV Laser Ordnance Neutralization System, better known as the Zeus system, consists of a solid-state directed energy weapon, aka a laser, mounted on the roof of a Humvee. Its 10 kilowatt solid-state heat capacity, SSHC, laser is capable of remotely detonating IEDs, surface mines, and UXOs, unexploded ordnances, from up to 300 meters away, by heating the target's explosive filler to the point of ignition. Unlike current methods of bomb disposal, which rely on Hurt Locker-style EOD teams, the Zeus destroys ordnances regardless of how they're wired. Zeus only requires a clear line of sight to the explosives and can be fired as many as 2,000 times a day. It takes about 30 seconds on average for detonation to occur. The system also has the advantage of keeping EOD teams safely in the Humvee, out of the way of sniper fire. Zeus has been under development since 1996 at the Army's High Energy Laser Systems Test Facility in White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. By 2003, the system was reliable and mobile enough to qualify for the field test in Afghanistan. Oh, great. They tested it over there. During Operation Enduring Freedom. During its 6-month tour of duty, Zeus cleared more than 200 munitions. Though, to be fair, 51 of those were neutralized in a 100-minute period. On average, the Zeus can clear about 24 IEDs in the course of an hour. In 2005, Zeus was deployed to Iraq, distinguishing it as the first battlefield use of a laser weapon. There you go. They admitted that they used laser weaponry, high-energy weaponry in Iraq and Afghanistan, so they have it, and I'm sure it's a lot more advanced. But what I find very interesting is they call it Zeus. So do you think that they really understand something about the past, that they don't let anybody else in the schools know, or anybody that talks about mythology as being some real information on history, or I really don't like that word history, but information about the past was called a dirty pagan, or, you had to be exterminated by the religious people. Do you think that they know something? Here we are in 2013, and we are calling high-energy lasers weaponry the Zeus, and talking about creating lightning and stripping electrons off of anything that conducts electricity. Now, they also use high-energy weaponry, and it was created by Raytheon to burn the fluids in people. And they've used some of these systems on prisoners and protesters. I'm going to read an article quickly from, I believe this one is Popular Science. LA prison using experimental controversial pain ray to keep inmates in line. This article is written by Clay Delo and posted on August 24, 2010. Inmates bringing the ruckus at Pitch's Detention Center in California will find that deputies there can bring the pain. Working as the test bed, very nice, for a National Institute of Justice experiment, the prison is testing Raytheon's assault intervention device, a 7.5-foot tall device that focuses an invisible energy ray on misbehaving inmates, causing a serious heating sensation that should bring said bad behavior to a halt. The device, which will be mounted high on the wall in a dormitory housing some 65 prisoners, does no damage, but its ray penetrates the skin about 1/64 of an inch over an area of about the size of a CD, causing a sensation that's been equated to the opening an extremely hot oven. The pain stops when the target gets out of the way of the beam. It is controlled remotely via a joystick and a camera mounted on the ray itself. Deputies at the Pitches think it should help break up fights between inmates and keep deputies from having to hurt themselves into hurl themselves into harm's way when inmates get unruly. Of course, we've seen similar technology before in a military setting. The U.S. Army deployed a similar Humvee mounted pain ray cannon to Afghanistan, though it was recalled to the States without ever being used, so we're told. Apparently incapacitating locals with a searing sensation of extreme heat was deemed an inappropriate way to win hearts and minds. At Pritchas, where they have already have been 257 inmate assaults and 19 assaults on deputies over the first half of this year, deputies are less worried about being liked and more concerned about maintaining safety and order. If the pain ray is successful at helping them do so, it could be installed in prisons nationwide. That is by Raytheon. So some of the stuff that Nikola Tesla talked about, basically, it's here. And I've heard rumors that after he died, all of his notes disappeared. But I've also had rumors that he went over to Egypt and studied all of the architecture over there, the ancient pyramids, believing that they were used to conduct electricity before he came up with his alternating current system and all of his fantastic ideas. So I definitely think the powers that be pretty much know what went on in the past, and they've used organized religion, a bunch of lies, and basically substandard educational system to keep people in control for the benefit of a few. I've got another article about Raytheon having a ship-mounted laser weapon. Says incinerates a UAV in flight. So, basically, this technology is here. It could definitely be used to create a crop circle. It could be used to kill people without the people even knowing what happened to them. They're already using it in the prison system. They've already used it on protesters, and they've used it in Afghanistan and Iraq. The most interesting thing to me is they named it Zeus and talked about lightning bolts. So this just goes to show you that mythology is just not a bunch of made-up stories about morals and ethics. There's definitely something to the mythologies that they've tried so hard to eliminate, by burning texts, killing priestesses, destroying ancient temples, and basically bringing in religions and converting everybody to something that I've already shown you is just their version of mythology in the previous show. So, with that said, I just would like to conclude today's show talking about myself a little bit more. If you do like this show, keep listening, tell people about it. If you like some of the things that I'm talking about, I've written 7 children's books that adults would enjoy. You can go to the www.thelibrarykids.com to find out more information. I've written 3 books in my Hidden Human Story series, more geared at adults. First book is The Mythological Unification Theory. The second is The Diaries of Dionysus. And the third is The Sacred Language of Symbology. I am on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and my CreateSpace store. I have a Facebook, The Library Kids, and Hidden Human Story. I have 2 blogs, RitaGMoran.blogspot.com, several articles, more geared for the kids and adults. And then I have HiddenHumanStory.blogspot.com that I'm working on. That's geared more for adults. And we'll have various articles about some of the subjects and mythology that we're talking about. I'm on Twitter. I'm on YouTube, YouTube/TheLibraryKids7. I'm on Goodreads and Pinterest. So if you go to the www.thelibrarykids.com, there at the bottom of the page, on the home page, there are several links to many of these online sources of information, and you can also purchase some of my books if you would like. Like I said, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or my CreateSpace store to get a little bit more information, or just to have a good read, or if you have some children that would be interested in a good story that weaves mythology and the past in an adventure. The Library Kids series is a good book series for that. So, as I said, keep checking and come back if you like this show. In the next several shows, I'm going to be looking at these characters from the past and getting a little bit more into their personalities and the mysteries that they taught. And in my Library Kids book, I have basically, just to give you a brief summary, it's about a group of children that find a secret library inside a cave up in Wisconsin. And with the library, they can go back in time and anywhere around the world that they want to. And there are rules to this library. And rule number 1 is to please remember that everyone has a story to tell. And it continues on with several more rules. But the idea that everyone has a story to tell. And that is why I want to go into these characters, because they lived and created a time period that changed everything on this planet. And that has just been hidden so well by the elites and the religious controllers. It is our right to know what this story is and who we are, where we came from, and why things happened. Not only do I believe that they affected things on this planet, but if you go into these ancient writings, as I'm going to go into, it appears that they were out on other planets as well. And there is a difference between those born of the sky and those born of the earth. And the ancient writings talk about autoborn. They give it a certain word, which means self-born. They weren't born out of a woman, so to say. They were self-born, which to me almost sounds like a cloning process. And that concept is applied only to the Titans. So there's definitely a hidden story of this planet, and a lot of it is revealed in the ancient mythology and ancient writings that aren't talked about or taught about. And we're given a culture of, I don't know what the proper word is, basically something of not real substance, and it's a distraction, even though they're flashing all kind of symbols and they're giving you all kind of bits and pieces from this past. They won't come out and directly tell you the truth. And what I hope to do in these shows and through my blogs and my books is to give you the tools and the proof and the evidence to reconstruct what happened on this planet and possibly out in the solar system, and back it up with these ancient writings and ancient mythology and show you how or what happened on this planet. So until we meet again, take care and take a look for the next show. Take care.